she didn't realize she was walking atop the forgotten stones of an Egyptian temple. Elsewhere along the Thames, a colossal steel tower once dominated the skyline until Churchill ordered its destruction. And behind the neon glow of Charing Cross Road, a legendary music hall vanished silently, sacrificed to progress. London doesn't simply rebuild, it erases. Yet beneath its glittering modern facade, the city guards stories of vanished landmarks, demolished, transformed, or simply wiped away. These are 12 lost architectural treasures and the secrets they left behind. These aren't merely demolished buildings. They're missing pieces of London's identity, remnants of a bygone era now buried under chain cafes, asphalt lots, and glass skyscrapers. And yet, their echoes still resonate in the city's soul. The Euston Arch, 1837 to 1962, like a Roman guardian, it stood watch over London's first intercity rail terminus. Constructed in 1837, this monumental sandstone arch drew inspiration from ancient classical architecture, majestic, refined, and ultimately purposeless. Yet it perfectly embodied its era, bold, industrial, and unapologetically ambitious. For more than 100 years, its grand columns welcomed countless travelers, serving as a powerful symbolic gateway until progress demanded its removal. The year everything changed, 1962. In a decision that still sparks outrage among preservationists, the British Transport Commission condemned the arch to demolition, all for a station redesign. The stones weren't carefully archived in some museum. They were unceremoniously dumped in the River Lea. Today, a bland thoroughfare leads to Euston Station, and the arch survives only in yellowed photographs and the simmering anger of those who fought to save it. London's forgotten giant. Long before the London Eye graced the skyline, another colossus watched over the city. The Great Wheel, constructed for the 1900 Empire Exhibition, soared 308 feet high and could carry more than 1,000 passengers at once. Modeled after Chicago's Ferris wheel, it embodied Victorian audacity, a thrilling ascent into the heavens during an era drunk on progress. But the wheel's glory was brief. By 1920, it had been dismantled for scrap. Its fatal flaw, being purely for entertainment in a pragmatic post-war world. The site now shows no trace of its existence, yet its legacy lives on each time a London Eye capsule completes its graceful arc above the Thames. The true first Chinatown. London's original Chinese quarter wasn't in Soho, it flourished in the dockside streets of Limehouse. Born from the ships and sailors who bridged England and the Orient, this vibrant enclave took root in the city's gritty East End. By the late 1800s, Chinese immigrants had established a self-contained world of aromatic tea houses, exotic restaurants, and mysterious apothecaries, places where Eastern remedies and traditions took hold in Victorian London. A neighborhood shrouded in mystery. Limehouse's Chinatown existed in a haze of exotic intrigue, simultaneously fascinating and misunderstood. Sensationalist newspapers painted it as a den of vice, while popular novels exaggerated its mystique. The Blitz's bombs devastated the area, and post-war urban planning finished what the war began. By the 1950s, the community had largely relocated to Soho. The original streets were paved over, the Chinese shop signs disappeared, and an entire cultural legacy was quietly erased beneath London's march toward modernization. The twin towers that defined Wembley. Today's Wembley Arch dominates the skyline, but for generations, the stadium's soul resided in its iconic twin towers. Built in just 300 days for the 1923 British Empire Exhibition, these white sentinels stood witness to football's greatest moments, from World Cup triumphs to Olympic glory. Their demolition in 2003 made way for a technologically superior arena, but something essential was lost in the transition. More than mere structures, the towers embodied the emotional weight of sporting history, their presence a tangible link to decades of collective memory. For many lifelong fans, Wembley's magic has never fully recovered. Holland House, a salon of power, 1605 to 1940. In 1605, a magnificent mansion rose near Kensington High Street, first known as Coke Castle, later as Holland House. Over centuries, this Jacobean masterpiece became London's most illustrious intellectual salon. Beneath its ivy-clad walls, the era's most brilliant minds, politicians, writers, and foreign dignitaries, debated the issues shaping Britain. The house stood as both architectural marvel and political powerhouse, its very stones imbued with centuries of refined English culture until the Luftwaffe's bombs found their mark. The night Holland House fell. On a single devastating night in 1940, the Luftwaffe rained destruction upon London. 22 bombs found their mark on Holland House, reducing the centuries-old mansion to skeletal ruins. Where aristocrats once debated philosophy and politicians shaped empires, only broken walls remained, a haunting monument to war's indiscriminate destruction. The Grand Salon that had hosted Britain's intellectual elite for generations now stood open to the sky, its crumbling arches whispering of lost glory. The skyline, a dream that wouldn't last. Rising like a silver needle above the South Bank in 1951, the skyline appeared to float miraculously in midair. This 300-foot futuristic spire, suspended by nearly invisible cables, became the glittering symbol of post-war Britain's optimism. It represented a nation ready to reinvent itself, until Churchill's government abruptly ordered its destruction just 1 year later. Dismantled and sold for scrap, the skyline vanished without a trace. Today, only photographs remain of this gravity-defying marvel that briefly let Britain imagine a brighter future. The Dome of Discovery, Britain's forgotten future. Beside the skyline stood its equally ambitious sibling, the Dome of Discovery. As the largest dome in the world in 1951, it housed dazzling exhibitions about space travel, scientific breakthroughs, and technological wonders. Visitors left inspired by visions of tomorrow, only to see the structure razed within a year. Where dreams of progress once flourished, a mundane parking lot took its place. The dome's demolition marked not just the loss of a building, but the abandonment of a certain hopeful vision for post-war Britain. Egyptian Hall, London's lost wonder. For nearly a century, Piccadilly boasted one of England's most extraordinary buildings, the Egyptian Hall, 1812 to 1905. With its towering lotus columns and hieroglyphic-adorned walls, it looked like an ancient temple misplaced in Victorian London. Inside, crowds marveled at exotic artifacts, archaeological treasures, and curiosities from distant lands. Yet by 1905, commercial interest triumphed over cultural preservation. The hall was demolished, its priceless collection scattered, replaced by ordinary office buildings. Where mummies once drew gasps of wonder, today's pedestrians hurry past, unaware of the magic that once stood on those stones. From wonder to coffee shop, the price of progress. Where the Egyptian Hall once stood, a Starbucks now serves lattes. This transformation, from temple of mystery to temple of caffeine, perfectly encapsulates London's relentless march toward modernization. The city's appetite for progress has always demanded sacrifices, often trading architectural marvels for utilitarian spaces. The Crystal Palace, a phoenix that never rose again. Conceived as the centerpiece of the 1851 Great Exhibition, the Crystal Palace was nothing short of an architectural revolution. This sprawling glass and iron cathedral showcased the pinnacle of Victorian innovation before being relocated and expanded in Sydenham. For decades, it stood as a beloved landmark, drawing millions of visitors, until that fateful November night in 1936 when flames consumed it. As the inferno lit up the night sky, weeping crowds watched the symbol of their era's confidence turn to ashes. Today, only scattered stonework remains in the park that bears its name, a ghostly reminder of what was lost in a single night. Holywell Street, London's vanished time capsule. Nestled between the Strand and Lincoln's Inn Fields, Holywell Street was a living relic of Shakespearean London, a winding alley of crooked Tudor buildings where time seemed to stand still. With its leaning facades and shadowy lanes, it was imperfect, eerie, and utterly enchanting. But in 1901, the wrecking balls came to create Kingsway, erasing centuries of history in the name of urban improvement. The street's destruction meant more than lost buildings, it severed a direct connection to London's theatrical past, where playwrights once wandered and Elizabethan ghosts supposedly lingered. Today, thousands walk unknowingly over this buried history, their footsteps echoing where stories were once born. The Astoria, where music history was made and erased. From its beginnings as a 1920s cinema to its heyday as a legendary music venue, the Astoria's walls pulsed with decades of musical history. The Rolling Stones, David Bowie, and Radiohead all graced its stage, making it a sacred space for generations of music lovers. But in 2009, the amplifiers fell silent forever as demolition crews moved in to make way for Crossrail. The loss was more than architectural, it was the silencing of a cultural heartbeat. Where once crowds swayed to electric performances, now commuters rush through yet another transit corridor, unaware they're traversing hallowed ground. The Mappin and Webb Building, Gothic glory lost. At the corner of Poultry and Queen Victoria Street stood one of Victorian London's retail jewels, at the magnificent Mappin and Webb Building, 1870 to 1994. This neo-Gothic masterpiece, with its intricate stonework and soaring arches, wasn't just a jewelry store, it was a monument to commercial pride and architectural ambition. Every pointed arch and carved detail spoke of an era when even shops were built to inspire awe. Its 1994 demolition. Make way for the postmodern, number 1 Poultry development remains controversial. Was this progress, or the loss of something irreplaceable? The answer may depend on whether you value cutting-edge design or historical continuity. But one thing is certain, London's streetscape lost a treasure that day. The price of progress, London's eternal trade-off. When the wrecking balls finished their work in 1994, the Mappin and Webb building's replacement, the postmodern number 1 Poultry, rose in stark contrast. Its pink limestone facade and geometric angles stood as deliberate rebellion against the Gothic intricacy it replaced. This architectural shift perfectly encapsulates London's endless cycle, out with the old, in with the new, even when new means sacrificing layers of history. Some celebrate the boldness of this change. Others still mourn what was lost. Because while cities must evolve, something intangible disappears when character gives way to concrete, when the weight of memory is traded for sleek functionality. A city that forgets, but never completely. London's landscape tells a story of quiet erasures. Not the dramatic destruction of war or fire, but the slow disappearance wrought by time, progress, and shifting priorities. The Astoria, the Skyline, the Crystal Palace, all gone, yet never truly forgotten. They live on in fading photographs, in the stories of those who experienced them, in the empty spaces where something extraordinary once stood. This city remembers in whispers, in the way sunlight hits a modern plaza where a Victorian marvel once cast its shadow, in the vibration of a train running beneath where music legends once played, in the collective memory that refuses to let these places fade entirely. Your invitation to remember, if you believe these lost landmarks deserve more than footnotes in history books. If you feel that architectural ghosts still shape the soul of this city. If you've ever walked down a street and sensed the echoes of what came before, subscribe to keep these stories alive. Because behind every vanished wall and demolished dome lies not just a building that was lost, but a piece of London's living history waiting to be remembered.